I think we are live now. Hi, I'm Shashi, and today we have the special guest, Saurav. Sir, can you tell me something about yours? Like, what is your
Yeah,
experience in Django and all this?
yeah, right. Hi, Shashi. I think everyone's special over here, not just me. So yeah, I'm very happy to be over here. So a little bit of introduction. So my name is Saurabh. I did my computer science engineering from Thapur University, and while I was in college and even otherwise, I was always into startups. So that's the reason why I got into majorly working in startups, work on my own also. So right after college, what I did was I joined this company called Cube26, which was later acquired by Paytm. So we did a lot of interesting projects over there using Python, JavaScript, a little bit of Golang and C. So we solve problems majorly around building feed algorithms, building an application backend, doing building file systems and whatnot. So after that, I joined Hacker Earth, and I wanted to get into Hacker Earth because it's a really nice product, and they have a really nice community, developer community. So that's when I worked on an enterprise product. And after that, I also was part of I headed the email infra team, and we managed to scale it to a state wherein we were able to send in 10 to 20 million emails a month. Right. So after Hacker Earth, what I did was my previous mentor, started a startup in the space of content, particularly vernacular content, and that is what interests me a lot. So I joined the startup called Home Screen Network, and we're working on a product for the next billion audience that's going to come online. So majorly they will not be English speaking, right? So the challenges that you face while building a product for a vernacular audience is unparalleled when it comes to probably other challenges. So you'll find problems that only developers in India will face. There are interesting UX problems, there are interesting scaling issues, and there are millions of such users. So that's why I decided to join this company, and I've been there ever since. Now, apart from this, I've also dabbled around with my own startup, and I'm working on. We've had several different pivots, and right now it is this website called preparingforgre.com. So what we essentially do is we recommend articles to students who are preparing for their GRE. We help them with their vocabulary and the reading comprehension. So again, over here, the entire tech. When talking about the tech that I've worked on, so I've been working in various languages like Python, JavaScript, um, C, C++, Golang. I mean, I'm not a master of any of these, but I do know my way around Python and JavaScript. So talking about the systems, I've been majorly working on web systems, distributed systems. I've worked with deployments, building orchestration tools, automation tools. Then probably video transcoding is something that I'm doing that's relatively new in my company, and various feed algorithms and databases. So if you have any questions around this or the industry or the job market in general, I'd be happy to that.
Great. So the first question is, so I was searching for, the top 10 coding languages, and I have gone through many articles, and I found that like Python was in top three in all the articles, right? Like in some articles, Java was the number one, then JavaScript was number two, Python was number three, and in some articles, Python was at number one, and so but Python was there in top three. So I mean, what do you think? Uh, let's say if someone is starting to learn coding, then if someone is deciding to choose one coding language, so what do you think about Python?
Right. I mean, interesting you asked that. So here's the long story. Okay, so I was at Hacker Earth, and the idea was, so we used to conduct these developer surveys even over there. And I think recently they also launched their developer survey. And again, like you mentioned, Python's always high in the rankings. So let's first start with the Python generally, and I'll be talking mostly about the pros of Python, and then we'll move on to languages in general. Right. So see, the reason why Python has probably picked up in the industry is because it's a very versatile language. You can probably program anything that has a controller inside of it, that has a processor inside of it with Python. So that's why it's a very versatile language. Secondly, there's a very strong community for Python. I mean, people like us. I mean, I have a job because there's an open source community of Python that's very strong. I mean, if everyone knows Django, it's a very strong framework. Then TensorFlow and such libraries, and so that's why I'd say the community for Python is very strong. Thirdly, I'd say there's decent stability when using Python as opposed to, let's say, a JavaScript family of frameworks. Not as stable as probably a Java based system, but yes, you do get decent stability if you have to stay scale to somewhere around 10 million to 20 million events per hour or something like that. So I've always been working with different Python systems, and I've seen it scale very efficiently up to a user base of maybe 10 million, 20 million, even 30 million. The only one area where I think Python does have a shortcoming when it comes to distributed systems is when you're dealing with files. So things like Golang or C work way better in that respect. So apart from that, yeah, coming back to why Python is probably a popular language is that fourthly the ease of development, right? It's a relatively flat learning curve. It's not as difficult as learning, let's say, C or even a functional programming language. Right, so Python has a relatively flatter learning curve, and that's the reason why people or any new learners prefer Python, because the feedback loop that they feel that they are learning something and they are able to implement is way faster in Python or even JavaScript for that matter. So yeah, for these reasons, I think Python is where it does fulfill the need of developers and even the need of the market, wherein you're supposed to build products that are relatively stable at a relatively faster time. So that is why I'd say Python, in that regards, is a pretty decent language. Right, now, I hope that is clear. Now, moving on to the next thing is one thing I think we all should know, that we shouldn't be fixated on any particular language. See, end of the day, a programming language is nothing but a tool to solve a problem. Right. That being said, I can tell you various scenarios where you'd see various languages being used. So first, let's cover a few use cases. Now, let's say you are a small startup, or you are in a services company wherein you're supposed to build 5 to 10 projects a year, or you're supposed to be prototyping for your own startup. That's when I'd say something like a JavaScript framework would be faster, because it allows rapid deployments, rapid coding, and the team sizes can be pretty small, and things just happen faster when you're working with the JavaScript framework. Right, now, next, when let's say you're at a stage of a company that has a product market fit, or you're in a decently placed startup where you are adding new features to a product. So that is when you'd usually see a Python Django framework, right? So it's been around since almost a decade or more than that. So that is why the Django and Python community has been built around the explosion of the entire web and even the IoT devices. So that is where you'd see, if you are expecting scale, or if you are in a company that has found some kind of a product market fit, and they know that, yes, this is a product that will last for, let's say, the next 6 months, that's when you definitely see a Python system that's there. Now, the third scenario is, now let's say you're writing enterprise software. You are dealing with big companies. You're dealing with financial banks. That's when a Java-based system is going to be way more useful. Like you'd never see a bank writing their backend in JavaScript or even Python for that matter. So that is in a scenario where I'd say a lot. Java systems are way more stable. There's a static type checking that is a big that's a big advantage over Python specifically. So in those scenarios, that's where Java kind of a system would work. And then the final scenario that comes is, let's say you are supposed to work with scientific computing, or you have algorithmic financial trading, or let's say networking, or any high throughput software. Like even in asynchronous programming, if you have high throughput software, that's when you'd see functional programming languages like RabbitMQ is built using Erlang. So that's where you'd see high throughput software is always written in functional programming languages. The major reason being because there are no side effects in functional programming languages and whatnot. So these are the various scenarios. And if you see in every different scenario, you're solving different set of problems, right? And I think as a developer, as an engineer, we should be fixated on the problems that you're solving more than the tools. End of the day, a programming language is just a tool. So that is why, in that regards, I say that every scenario you would tend to use a different language. All this being said, yes, Python is definitely hands down the winner when it comes to versatility. In the sense, I've also worked in enterprise software that is written in Python. I've also worked in startups that are prototyping that I've seen in Python. Right. So in that sense, yes, I'd say learning Python, since it's easier, since the job market is they're relatively a little more widespread when it comes to Python. So there are advantages learning it. Yes.
Okay, so if I talk about the frameworks to build some web applications, so we have, like, if you talk about Java, we have Spring Boot. For JS we have Node.js, and for Python we have Django, right? Or we have Flask. So what do you think? I mean, what is how good is Django if we compare with other frameworks?
Right. So, okay, now talking specifically about Django, I think let's say you are in a team size of maybe 5 developers and you have a product market fit relatively where you're expecting, let's say, uh, anywhere between 1,000 to 10 million users in the next 1 to 2 years, right? That is when Django works best, when you know that you have to have a relatively faster build time and also a decently stable product, right? So that is where Django is hands down probably the best web framework out there. And when I say specifically, I said web projects. Let's say you're building Instagram, which at the end of it, it's even though it's an Android app, let's not get into the clients, but essentially a distributed web system. So that's where, I mean, even Instagram, for the majority of its initial users, when they even scaled up to 10 million or even more than that, they were using Django, and they had probably 7 to 8 developers. So that is how stable I'd say Django is. And yes, the one issue with Django is it's now we did talk about Python having a flatter learning curve, but when you get into Django, things change. It is definitely a sharper, steeper learning curve. There are a lot of tricks that do go into Django specifically to make things work in a more efficient manner. That being said, working with scale, Django at the end of the day is just a web framework. It will only give you the right architecture to set up your web systems. Right? I think the most important thing to get a decently scalable system is to get the architecture correct. The language is always going to be secondary. Now, why would you choose a certain language? Is only because you are able to develop it faster, and given if you're in, say, a situation where you need to scale rapidly, you would be able to do that. So that's where Python fits this bill. So that being said, Django definitely, to sum up this answer, I'd say if you're working with scale from, let's say, 1,000 users to 10 million users, Django does work flawlessly. But yes, there are several moving parts to it. For example, your database design needs to really be figured out, and Django tends to work better with Postgres and the relational databases like Postgres primarily, and then MySQL. It doesn't really have very strong support for a non-relational database as good as its native support for relational databases. But you get what I'm talking about. You do have limitations, but anything that has to scale for 10 million users, Django does definitely work flawlessly, even though you have a team size of, let's say, even 20 to 30 developers. So while I was at HackerEarth, we had a developer team size of over 30 members, including all facets of software engineering, including testing, design, backend, infra, and whatnot. And everybody used to work in the Django paradigm and using Python. So
okay, so we'll be taking some questions from the live chat. The first question is, someone is bored with Java, and he wants to shift to new language with job security. So what do you think? I mean, which language?
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Devanand, for that. I think it's just a very practical take on it. Okay, if you want to get into the job market, and if you're bored of learning Java, I'd say Python is definitely a nice language to learn. Simply, if you want to get into backend development, right? Now, that being said, see, getting a job is a slightly different ball game. Where, in the sense, like if you're targeting fan companies, Google, Facebook, and whatnot, that's when your DS and Algo takes the front stage. Those companies are not really going to be looking at your language knowledge as much as your data structures and your basics. Right, now, coming to startups, yes, you will have a lot more fun working with the products because there are lesser restrictions, and you have to build a lot more. And working in startups, to name a few, HackerEarth, CureFit, companies like these are all Python based systems. Or if you're looking for jobs in, let's say, the Southeast Asia, so you'd see definitely Python and Django being used a lot more. Yes. So yeah, so if you have to shift from Java, I'd probably say Python is definitely a decent language to learn in. If you want to get into backend, if you want to get into front end, there is only one option, which is JavaScript. Probably if you want to get deeper into front end, you should get into JavaScript and a few more frameworks that will get you job ready. But yes, getting a backend job, it's not going to cut it with only knowing Python. You need to have a few projects that you have worked with Django that is going to make your employers make them hire you, right? So you need stronger reasons for that. You need experience. Even if you haven't worked with systems, you can definitely build your own websites, and that will show some intent. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the next question from Prateek Gaur.
Right. So how to learn Python Django? As I know, MERN stack web development, is it easier to work in the backend than Node.js? Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Prateek, for that. So, okay. First, we'll answer the first part of the question, which is how to learn Python Django. See, there are several courses out there that will help you learn Python Django. There are several documents, blogs, even Geeks for Geeks. We are going to be conducting one course only around Python Django. So that's, I'd say that's a decent kick, decent start into this entire world of web development. Back-end web development with Python. Uh, Now, since you already know MERN stack, so you would know the basics. Now, the basics being, how client server architectures work, what APIs are, how you build such APIs, how testing is done, how do you maintain decent throughput and whatnot, and application development basically. If you know that in any language, the principles are exactly the same, only the implementations vary. Right. So Java might be calling it Springs, Django, Python guys might be calling it Django, and there are several options. But the technologies essentially remain the same if you're working on HTTP web protocols, and if you're working with the MERN stack. I mean, you can still. It doesn't really matter. You can get into the Python Django side of it. All you need to do is probably spend a little more time to learn how things are done with the Python universe as opposed to your MERN stack. Okay, so I think Mayaram Anirudh asks a question. I'm in networking support as a fresher, but I don't want to work there. I want to shift my domain. Please give me the tips to shift from the networking domain. Okay, thanks Anirudh for that. So, okay, so you say you want to shift to something, right? So the thing is, you need to tell us where you want to shift to. Now, what I can do is I can probably tell you a few options. Like there is, if you want to stick into programming, you have front-end development, you have back-end development, and you have software engineering in general. Right? If you're looking to target big companies, I'd say you should start definitely with Geeks for Geeks, LeetCode, and such code forces and whatnot to get your programming skills at a decent stage, so that you can target companies like the FAANG companies. And the good thing about the FAANG companies is they don't really care from which college you are, as long as you are able to solve their problems, right? So now if you want to work into startups, and if you think you want to, so in my experience, what I have seen is for anybody that is relatively new into programming, front-end development specifically is the fastest to learn, the most fun to learn, and there are readily available jobs in front-end specifically. Now, why I say that is because, see, you'd find a lot of back-end developers all around the world, but you'll find few people who are actually who want to stick to the front-end side of it, who are experts in CSS, in JavaScript, in HTML and whatnot. Right. So I'd say if you want to get into the job market relatively quicker, front end is one idea that you might want to explore, because when you're learning front end stuff, it's easier to there's a really strong feedback loop. But since you've been in the networking domain, I mean, I did my CCNA in my first year, I remember, and I found networking actually really interesting. But and I also did an internship, in the networking domain in Bharat Petroleum, wherein we worked on projects like shifting network protocols from EIGRP to BGP, and we were working with a number of servers and whatnot. I did find that fun, but if I had to pursue a career in the networking domain, I personally did not want to, because there was less programming involved, and there was more maintenance or working with interfaces, if that makes sense. So that is probably why I can understand why you're bored with where you are, is because probably you're not getting to create as much as the maintenance side of it. So if you want to be creating, I'd say you can start small, explore web programming languages, or even Android for that matter, or even the backend for that matter. Right. So next, I think Ritesh asks, Django versus Flask, which framework to learn as a beginner? Okay, thanks Ritesh for that. I think, okay, as a beginner, now if you're working on your own projects, Flask is actually a very easy, simple framework to learn. And I can also give you a third option. There is this thing called web.py. Now, it was written by this great person called Aaron Swartz, the internet's own boy, they call him. And that person wrote this software when he was barely 20. And it's probably the simplest and the strongest web frameworks out there, web.py. It's all on GitHub. Sadly, Aaron is not alive anymore. It's a different topic anyway. So web is probably the simplest to get. So you can probably read the documentation of web.py in the morning and get a website up by night. That's how easy it is to develop. Flask will give you a little more control, and it is a little more complex, but still slightly easier. You can still write a one-page, a one Python file website using Flask. Django, I'd say, has a sharper learning curve, if you're willing to spend maybe a week or two, then I'd say go for Django. And but yes, the possibilities with either of three, I would say, are endless. And like I said in the beginning, we should not really be worried about the tools, but look at the use cases. Right. So there are, Ujjwal asks, there are lots of languages in web development. If we learn only Django, is it sufficient? Yeah, thanks, Ujjwal. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned this. I'm sure. Okay, so now when it comes to web development, let's look at the different sides of the story. Right now, let us look at a decently sized company. Let's say you are in a company that has around 5 million users, and you have a website and even an Android app for that matter. So, what are the different teams that might exist in this company? First, let's say you will have front-end developers for web who will be specifically working with JavaScript, HTML, CSS, React, Angular, doesn't matter, the client side of it. Then you'll have Android guys who are going to be writing Java for the Android applications. Then you'll have a backend team. Now, in specifically the backend team, you will have various options, Python, and if you're going to be using Python, since there are 5 million developers, hands-on choice will be Django, right? So now and then there'll also be an infrastructure team. There will also be, let's say, a video processing team and whatnot. Now, let's say there are 5 teams, out of which if you know Django, you will be useful in one of those 5 teams, which is the backend team. And provided the company is working in the Django stack. Second biggest advantage, I'd say, is, let's say if you're into machine learning, if the application has any machine learning work, I'd say Python is probably the only language out there that any production level company would support when it comes to writing machine learning applications. Right. Now, coming back to your question, like Django, what does Django give you? Django will only give you the ability to understand scalable web systems and to write scalable web systems. Right. Now, big websites like even HackerEarth is written in Django. Right. So if they're looking for developers, they will obviously need somebody who has been working with Django for over 2-3 years. Because without the intricacies of Django, you will not know what Python to write where. Right. So in that sense, I think even Django, there is a big scope. So like I said, Django at the end of the day is a framework. What that framework is used for, you can write, I mean, infinitely many applications using just one framework. I mean, for the majority of my career, I only knew Python and Django, and I've worked on so many different use cases in various industries. And the thing is, Python Django was sufficient for me to solve all those problems, provided I knew front-end technologies as well and a few client technologies if I want to be in the internet domain. Right, and if you want to be touching Python, if you want to be touching any artificial intelligence or ML related stack, you probably, knowing Python would probably get you faster to the machine learning cycle. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll be taking more questions. Before that, I just want to ask, one common question which is being asked by a lot of users. The question is, how should I start learning Python, and then how should I start learning Django? I mean, what should be the complete path, step by step, to learn these things?
Right. Okay, so now let's have a detailed look at this. Again, now there are obviously several scenarios to this. One way of learning will definitely not going to work for everyone out there. I mean, we've all been through schools. One way of learning did not cut it out, right? So now let's say you're a student of engineering, computer science or electronics or civil engineering, doesn't matter. If you're a student of engineering, what that essentially means is you have a lot of time, you have less responsibilities. So that means you would probably want to give a lot more time to your fundamentals, right? So in that, I'd say do concentrate on computer science subjects like algorithms and data structures first. Why? I'll tell you why. Because now let's say you know what an array is. An array, be it Python, JavaScript, Java, Rust, brainfuck, whatever, it doesn't really matter. An array is a data structure that is a computer science theory. A language only implements computer science theories. Hence, if you know the fundamentals, you will easily be able to learn any language. So if you're an engineering student, your main focus should be learning how to learn quick. In the sense, let me talk about real scenarios. Now, if you will be in a job wherein you are supposed to create a product within a week, nobody's going to tell you what language to use. The first thing you'll do is you'll Google how to create, let's say, a file system or an API that is able to, let's say, capture, let's say a million file transfers per minute, right? Python is not going to cut it. You'll have to probably shift to Golang. So you'll probably get 2 days to study through the documentations of Golang and probably a day or more to implement the entire server, right? So like I said, do not be fixated on the language, but if you're an engineering student, learning how to learn should be your primary focus. You should be able to get to a state wherein you are able to read documentation in the morning and make something out of it by the evening. If you're able to do that, I'd say you're in a decently good uh, position. Right. So yeah, so if you're an engineering student, focus on your basics first. Apart from that, there are several resources out there when it comes to Python. Your college might already be prescribing you some of those textbooks. If you're more of an online learner, I'd say learn Python the hard way is probably the easiest resource out there that teaches you very basics of programming using Python. Apart from that, if you want to get into a more accelerated learning, there are courses such as the ones that we are going to conduct. That is for Django specifically and web development, although. Again, talking specifically about Python, like I said, learn Python the hard way is a brilliant resource. Apart from that, there O'Reilly books for Python are really good, and there are tons of resources out there. And I think Geeks for Geeks also had a decent detailed structure of learning this language.
Yes, we have a section for learning Python language.
Correct. And I mean, when I was in my college, I actually used to refer to a lot of Geeks for Geeks articles, primarily being they are very succinct in the nature that if I know what I'm looking for, I read one article, I get a decently gist of it. That being said, what I would recommend more than anything of all of these is please read the official documentation of Python. They are docs.python. So any question that you have, if you have a doubt, you definitely look to the community, refer to books, but it is always helps if you read the official documentations. Why? Because trust me, 50% of your entire job as a software engineer is going to be reading documentations. So it's going to help you get used to that kind of language. They are boring texts, mind you. If you read 30 minutes straight, you're going to feel sleepy. So you need to train your mind to do that, right? So that's why it's important you read the official documentations. And if you're really interested, what I keep doing as a Python developer is first time I came across, let's say I wanted to scrape 10 different websites. I use the request library, right? Don't stop there. I mean, request library is something that's sitting on your computer, right? You can open that code, scan through the code, read the comments what developers write, read the code. You'll be surprised it's not as hard as you would think. And that is also the way to get into open software development, by the way. But I'd say one very good thing to keep in mind is if you're looking for accelerated learning, go for courses. If you have a bit more time, do your basics, and also read as much as Python code as you can, preferably good Python code. If you're looking for competitive programming contests, Python is a decent language to get started, simply because it's easier to implement. But if you're looking to get into the top charts, C++, hands down, works way faster. PyPy version 3 definitely is somewhere there, but it's nowhere close to C++. Anyway, so that's the competitive programming part of it. If you're looking to write production level software, there are tons of open source Python projects. Request library is one of the best libraries to study as code. It's a very nice, just download the library and go through every file, go through every comment. It's a beautifully structured, very well written programs. So yeah, so that's if you have a lot more time. So now if you're let's say you're already a professional, right? And if you're already into, I think like some of the questions that people did ask earlier is if they're already working in Java and they need to get somewhere else, right? So in that sense, your learning needs to be a lot more targeted. If you're looking for a job that you already know, then look into the job descriptions. They will expect you to have, if it's a Python-based company, they will expect you to have I mean, if you have, let's say, 2 years of engineering experience, anybody is going to be looking for Django developers who have, let's say, 2 to 3 years of experience, right? But what you can probably beat the expectations over there is, playing the ball game that yes, you have been working in web development and you have decent experience with Python and you have self-taught yourself in, let's say, Django systems. So that probably might get you over the edge, right? So I'd say again, practice and experience is going to be slightly easier if you're already a professional, since you already know how web development works. And once you go through the docs or any courses of Django, you'll understand that these are the same concepts that have been just applied in a different way. And that being said, Python is probably the easiest languages to learn out there as a programming language. And when I was in college, we used to be they used to teach us C, and I think C is not a good language to learn as a fresher because it has a very complicated concepts that are slightly outdated these days. And C, I'd say, is for someone who wants to get into a lot more depth of operating systems and even networking.
and even writing software such as databases. So you will not find a lot of jobs that are writing really complicated software using C, simply because there are a lot more applications than there are databases, isn't it? So that's why you'll find a lot more jobs in Python as opposed to C. So in that sense, I think Python is a great first language to learn. Yeah, I think those are some of the several scenarios on how you would probably want to approach learning Python and Django. So if nothing, I would say just go through the Django docs. They are one of the best written documentations you will find online. So if you just want one takeaway from all of this, is just open the Django documentation, spend maybe 20 minutes over there, and I'm sure you will get interested. Right. So Dia asks, what projects should I do in Django to add to my resume? Okay, thanks, Dia, for that. I think that's a pretty practical way to look at it. In fact, I'd probably add over here is this is a very nice way to pick up a learning goal. Now, let's say you want to learn Python Django. Another way to look at it is, let me create this project and use Python and Django to do that. Right. So I'll give you a very small example. Now, one of the major reasons why I wanted to get into a startup was to learn machine learning. And I wanted to learn machine learning, but I know I'm not going to do that just by Kaggle. That doesn't work for me. So when I wanted to, we targeted a startup space that required machine learning. For example, recommending articles for GRE preparation. A simple use case is, you have a dictionary of 1,000 words. You have an article. You have to highlight all the words that are there in the dictionary within that article. Right? Simplest horrible way to do this is N square. I think all Geeks for Geeks viewers are going to be blaming me for this, but yes, that is one way you can do it. If you want a little bit, a slightly more efficient approach, machine learning algorithms are also there, NLP-based various algorithms. So that is when I started learning Python and Django. TensorFlow and whatnot. Right. So that is one really good way to set a learning goal, is to create a project. Coming to your question, there are several projects. I think when I used to train people, first and foremost, I used to ask people to do is create a dictionary, a Google-like web page when you enter a word and you get the meaning of that word, and you can save that word and you can retrieve it later. Now, there are several facets to this, and this can be infinitely complex as well, but it's a very nice starting project to work on. Again, this is why I just mentioned why I usually start with this project, and this is because there is a front-end element to it, there's a back-end element to it, there's a database involved, there's definitely a web framework involved, and you will definitely see why a web framework works. Right. Apart from that, I think there are several, there are infinitely many projects out there. Now, I'm a football fan. I probably make a simple project that, let's say, analyzes all, Premier League championships over the past 10 years. Or, coronavirus is, analytics around coronavirus is something that's really out there. So maybe you can work with projects around analyzing coronavirus trends. So in fact, probably a week back or two, I was just dabbling around Kaggle, and I did work on this analysis. They were freely available data sets using the coronavirus. So what I did was just wanted to analyze how India and its neighbors are reacting to the entire coronavirus situation. You do see interesting things. So maybe that's something that's relevant out there. So, pick your interest, your passion in life, see something that's doable. Or another very good way to look at it is, start with your passion. Look at the problems that you are facing related to that passion. See if any of them fit within the scope of a website that can solve that problem, and probably attack it in that way. Right. So Abhinav asks, what kind of Django specific questions are asked in a Django developer interview? Okay, fairly interesting. Okay, so thanks, Abhinav. So, okay, now let's say you are interviewing for a company for a senior software engineering role. So I do remember interviewing for this company in Thailand. It's a pretty high profile company. The question that they used to ask me was, let's say, transaction analysis. That there is this thing called transactions in when you're dealing with Django APIs. So they would ask you questions around that. Then OAuth implementation is something that's pretty tricky when it comes to Django, right? So that is something that they will ask you with, what is your experience implementing OAuth, and if there are any caveats to it. Now, apart from that, I think one very important thing that any Django, decently sized Django companies will ask you is, they'll look at your modeling practices, creating database models, and they'll look at your integrations if you know how integrations work using Django. Then migrations is one big thing in Django. That's nothing but updating your database state from your application logic. So they'll be looking at your knowledge around migrations, which is very important for a Django developer. Then one thing that people would focus on is if your ability to deploy a Django application. Right. Yeah, I hope answers that question. Apart from that, I mean, if I have missed certain, so I try to just explain the broad areas. Definitely, there are deeper things to this. If you're it's a relatively junior developer, what they will be asking is your understanding of the MVC pattern. If you're able to use things like static methods and classic methods with Django models, and the way you structure your Django project, these things are way more important when if people do ask you Django specific questions. Yes, so I think Sushmita asks how to develop an online judge using Django. Okay, right. So thanks for asking me that. So I was part of a HackerEarth team, and HackerEarth, as you know, has an online judge using Django. Now that so you could spend an entire year doing this, but let me give you a very small gist of it. Let's look at an online judge. What does it really have? The simplest out there is, let's say, SPOG or Codeforces. You have a web page that displays a problem, that displays the test cases, the input and the output, and that lets you submit a solution. It lets several people submit a solution, and there has to be an online judge that is able to judge all the solutions that people submit in order of their submissions. Right? So essentially, you need a web page, you need a queue wherein people can push in the submissions, and you need an online judge that judges that code. Right? And now this is the bare minimum that you would require. Okay, now if all of this has to exist even after the contest ends, you will need a database to store everything. Right? So another moving piece to it is a database. Now, where does Django come inside of all of this? Django is going to be your main Git repo. Right? Now, let's say, let's call the online judge, Judge Gupta. Right? Now, what happens is the project Judge Gupta will be a Git repository which will have several, a lot of code written into it, but it's essentially going to be a Django project that is later deployed on a server using a Python application server. Right? So and within that, you will have a front-end component of Django that is where the web page is designed, and then you will have certain files in Django that talk about your connections with your database. Then you will have code written in Python using different packages that implement a queue to build that queue that we talked about, so that people put in their submissions. Then you will have an online judge. It's going to be nothing but it will take a piece of code, run it on that operating system in a containerized, isolated environment such that it does not mess up anything else, right? So, and the result of the submission is then going to be stored in your database, and the connecting layer between all of these are going to be APIs, web APIs, within server APIs, doesn't matter. But once the database status of any submission is updated, that's when you can probably pull it from your web page to ask if the solution has been accepted or not. So this is the most succinct way I can get into it. Definitely, we can get into terrible details into this. There are several moving pieces. Now let's move on to the next question. Now Rohit says, I started an internship 4 months ago. However, my CEO is kind of abusive, uses foul words in case of bugs, and takes advantage of current situation. Should I quit and prepare for another job? Okay, Rohit, I'm sorry you find yourself in that situation. Anybody who is abusive to you in any language, in any job for that matter, is not correct. First, I think what you could do is probably talk to him about it, talk to the HR in the company about it. If none of those things work out, I think your dignity is more important. It is okay to find a new job. And I think there is nothing wrong in switching companies these days if things are not working out for you. And the situation Rohit finds himself in, abusive colleagues, is something that will not help you learn anything. That's only going to make you angry. No point in sticking in a company that makes you angry. And now let me talk about this using foul language in case of bugs. Now, this is something that is very common in a lot of companies. This sentiment, I'm not saying this behavior specifically, all around in a lot of companies, you would see irritation when bugs happen. Right now, we all of us need to know that developers are just humans. People do make mistakes, but reacting to those mistakes is completely dependent on the people that are around you. It definitely starts from the leadership, and any mentality of the leadership of the company trickles down. So if your CEO is acting abusive on bugs, I do not think it is fair for that. You should definitely call him out on that. And the bad thing about this is people. Since it's the CEO, everyone below that will, might think that, this kind of behavior is okay to be tolerated. And I think that's an abusive situation. It's not going to help you learn, even if the money is good. If learning is your main goal, I don't think it's a very conducive environment for you. Right. So Devanand asks, are there any open source projects in Django I can contribute to? It should help me add weight in my resume. Okay, now that's an interesting question. Let's talk about open source projects in Django. Now, depending upon your level of proficiency, first thing you can start off with in open source contribution, in fact, this is a general guideline, get into the GitHub of Django. It's an open source project. There are several bugs listed, right? So look if you can solve any of those bugs, right? Now, that is the general way to get into it. Now, it's a longer story. First of all, Django is a very complicated software. If you have to be able to contribute within Django, you will have to have a certain amount of proficiency in it. That being said, if you are already a proficient developer, 2 to 3 years of experience, spend 1 month on learning Django, learning the insights of Django, then you could get into the developer communities, join the Google messaging groups. I'm part of a few Django groups, join the Telegram group, and then you can probably start attacking the bugs out there and look at the contributor of the bug. And bugs are a good starting point if you want to contribute in the Django project. Apart from that, there are several other projects out there that use Django and that are open source. Okay, now one such example could be, there are several Django projects out there, government or NGO related projects that have websites up there that are serving various purposes. You can probably go to contribute them with those projects out there. I think the simplest way to do it is just get into GitHub, search using Django or Python, see or list down all the projects that are related to Django and look into your interests, and that's a decent way to get started with it.
Yeah, I just want to talk about our course. So we are launching a course on Django. So I'm going to share my screen, and Saurabh will be talking about the course. So let me do that.
Sure.
First. Yeah. So Saurabh, can you what will be the benefits of this course? Let's say if someone is joining this course, then how it will help him to learn this skill in a faster way, or how he will be able to learn all the important concepts easily.
Right. Just let me just open the link as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Now talking about this course specifically. Now coming to Django specifically. See, I've been writing Django for almost 5 years now, and I still would not say I know all of it or even close to all of it. Right. So that is why it is impossible for any course to claim that they're going to teach the entirety of Django to you. And we also do not claim the similar stuff. But what we can give you is a definite good breadth first explanation of what exists in the realm of backend development, specifically web development. Right? The things that we will focus on is web development with Python, using Django as a framework to create RESTful APIs. We'll have a look at how microservices work. There will be a little bit of JavaScript and jQuery involved, since you will require a client to create the web pages. Right now, I think we can go module by module to get a better gist of what we will be covering throughout this course. Right? Yeah. So if you look at the course content, I think the first module, what we will be covering is the basics of Python. We will study a little bit of operating system basic commands, get and SSH. Okay, now this is very important that once you get into a professional environment, it's not going to just be Python and Django. You will be requiring a lot more other skills. Communication skills is one thing that's very important. Apart from that, what is important is your basic knowledge of terminal commands. You should know how to use Git. You should know what SSH is, how to implement not implement, but how to work with any bugs related to SSH. That's something that we will be covering. Then we'll have a look at simple tools like virtual environment, pip. These are tools that are in the backend Django development realm that are going to help you learn better. Now, see, all of these tools are, the Valley industry cutting edge tools that are out there to create any project using Django. Right. Then we'll have a look at web servers, the basics of clients and servers. Then we'll have a few we'll have a few examples of Django projects and whatnot. Right. So that's going to be your first module. After that, we will have a look at the model layer. This has all to do with the databases. We will try and integrate relational databases, maybe Postgres or MySQL, and also non-relational database such as Mongo into your Django project. That's going to be the second module. In the third module, we'll have a look at your views and controllers. This is where you will get a little bit of front end. You will have to write web pages. We will be covering JavaScript, jQuery, and if in there is interest, we will have a look at how you would integrate an Angular project or a Redux project or a React project into your Django application. Right now, apart from that, in the fourth module, we'll have a look at auth and APIs, because these are two essential things that any project related to Django will have, right? An authentication system, and also you will have to write APIs. So we'll have a look at the industry best practices when we are going to write APIs. Then in the fifth module, what we'll do is we'll have a look at deployments, how you would probably deploy uh, a Django application. I'm going to share my own code that I use in my personal projects and even professionally otherwise. I'll share cookbooks and recipes with you that will help with your deployments. We'll have a look at the UWSGI server, which is an application server used to run the Python code. We'll have a look. We'll have a bit of primer around Celery, RabbitMQ. We'll do tasks like sending emails and whatnot using these kinds of technologies. And throughout the entire project, how we want to structure it is not like just a regular classroom teaching model. What I would probably like to do is conduct it like, let's say we're all part of a company for a weekend, right? We'll start with probably a stand-up wherein we're all talking about what we're doing. Then we'll each be given tasks, and throughout the learning course, we will be developing an entire project. So the target is everyone who does attend the course, by the end of it, if all of them have one working project or several other working projects, that gives them the ability to have the confidence or the confidence to learn more stuff and to be able to implement using that framework for any other idea. So that's going to be the target of this entire course, is so that you get a primer of all the different moving parts that you would see in a decently sized project.
Yeah, I just want to add the highlights. So basically, you will get the certificate, and you can, add that certificate to your resume. That will help you to get the interview calls easily for startups. And again, I mean, you will be learning this thing from experts like Saurabh. So of course, you will have the industry, like you will know like how things are built in industry, and you will know the best practices to build something. So yeah, so that is the main benefit of going with this course. And again, this batch has limited strength, so you will be given the one-to-one attention. So you will have a WhatsApp group, and you can ask your doubts in that group anytime, and our mentor will be helping you. So these are the highlights of the course. So again, you can learn these things by yourself, but the benefit with the course is you can learn these things quickly if you are going with the course. So that's
definitely. To add to what Shashi said is, listen, we do not want to claim that this is the only way to learn Django. Definitely, it's an open source software. But what we will help you with is giving, cut your learning time, and we point you towards the right resources, the right industry practices that are being used in jobs.
Okay, so we'll take a few more questions from the live chat.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so.
Right. So Anirudh asks, right now I'm an employee as a fresher, work as a fresher, MNC, throw into networking domain. Okay, he's a student in the networking domain. But as a CA student, I don't want to work in the networking area. I want to shift from networking to development domain. Okay, so if you want to get into networking to development, and that is exactly what my story is. In my first year of engineering, I did my CCNA. I was really interested in networking and the theory behind it. I studied books like Tenenbaum and whatnot. After that, I followed it up with an internship. Now, why am I telling you this? It is important that, end of the day, your learnings need to have a goal. If your learning is to have a job, you need to have a fair bit of experience. You need to look at how the job is, right? So that's why an internship is probably the best way to see if a particular domain is what that interests you. So the first thing I would recommend, Anirudh, is, see, it's not easy to get a full-time job because you're going to be up against people who have been doing that full-time. But what it's going to be easier for you is to get an internship if you want to switch a domain. That's going to, if you're already if you're already a working professional, if you look for an internship in the programming, since you're someone who's just about to start with it, it's going to help you learn a lot more. And 2 months of an internship, treat it as a boot camp. Trust me, that will give you almost a year of learning. So that is one way you can get into that. Now, what you would ask me is what kind of jobs or what kind of internships. There, I would say pick one that is in the web development, that has backend or frontend, or both of these. That's going to give you a decent starting point. Look for an internship because especially at this time in the coronavirus time, yes, you will have fewer jobs, but interns, I predict a lot more companies will be hiring a lot more interns. So it might be slightly easy for you to get into it. Right now, Pawan asks, is the given time sufficient enough to learn the Django course? I assume you're talking about the Geeks Who Geeks course, which is scheduled to be around 6 weeks. Listen, definitely, if you look at it, if you're going to be only learning within those 6 hours per weekend, it's not going to be enough. I've been learning Django 5 years and I still do not claim I know Django. What we want to aim at is that you have the ability to learn, and we will give you a very decent starting point, right? I think 6 weeks is fairly enough to give you enough, to give you a breadth first idea about what a big scale web project will look like. But definitely, we expect you to be working even on the weeks based on the assignments or the projects that we will be working on. So I'd say 6 weeks is a fairly decent time to get a gist of it. So it should be enough if you already have a fair bit of experience with basics of programming. So, okay, Mayuresh asks, hi, I'm more interested in web services API development. Can you suggest me how to get hands-on in it? Okay, now you are, okay, if you're talking specifically about web services, web APIs, someone mentioned Flask earlier. Flask is a very nice framework to look at it. If you definitely know, the API that you need to write, I think Flask is going to get you fastest to that, or even WebPy. And Django, if, like I said, it's a decently scaled project that you estimate will be around for 6 to 12 months. So for that, you should, if you already know Python, look into Flask or Django or web.py. If you're into JavaScript, you can look at Node or any other. If you're in any other language, thing that you would want to go into is how to write an API using that language. That's going to point you to a framework. That's a decent starting point. Okay, which to go for, MERN stack or Python? I'd say, what are you learning for? Is it a job? If it's the job that's asking for a MERN stack, then you should be learning MERN stack. If your job asks you for learning Python, Python's your way to go. For example, I was really interested in this company called Dropbox, right, when I was in my college, and that's when I came to know that Dropbox works in Python. And that's when that was my motivation to pick up Python. Although I did not get the Dropbox job, but I did end up learning Python. That did employ me elsewhere. So I'd say first pick your learning goal and then go for the stack. That being said, what I had covered earlier in the webinar were several use cases where a particular a developing framework is used. MERN stack is somewhere where you have rapid deployments when you're working on several different projects. Python, if you are looking for a more versatile language, and Django, if you're looking for a very stable project. Right. So Nehan asks, I work as a QE. I want to move to development. Is it possible to get internship into that, or can I directly try for it? Okay. So that's a pretty interesting thing that I think I've seen a lot even in my industry. Two very similar patterns is that quality engineers want to move into development engineers want to move into machine learning. That's the general trend. Okay, for anybody who is into quality engineering and wants to get into product development, the basic use cases are you would require to learn programming. And I definitely believe that quality engineers do write a lot of code. They, in fact, do write a lot of code around testing other people's code. So I do not think it's going to be very difficult for you to make the jump into creating software. For that, whatever language you're already using, start with a few projects, create a few websites, create a few projects, get your GitHub running. After that, if you're already working in a company, try and apply for a developer position within your own company. And then you will see that once you start interviewing, there are several other requirements that you would require to pass through to get an internship. For example, data structures and algorithms is something that a lot of companies do focus on apart from your projects, right? So get a feel of it, interview maybe 2-3 companies. You will see what are the stuff that you probably need to learn, and then dedicate your time towards it. If you think you want something faster, I would definitely say it is slightly easier to get an internship than a job, generally speaking. Right. Abhinav asks, please summarize what all needed to get a Django developer job. Okay. Right. So, okay. Now that totally depends on the experience that the company is looking for. Now, let's say if you're looking, if the company is looking for someone who's 2-3 years of experience, what they will expect is that you have been working with Django, and not just on your personal projects, but you have worked with Django with some decent scale, right? Scale being at least maybe, let's say, scale of any 1,000 quanta per minute kind of a scale, or maybe a million user scale. That kind of a is what the industry is looking for. People who have used Django at a scale. Right now, that's for an experienced developer. If you're somebody who's just starting out as a fresher, obviously it's not fair for a company to expect a scale out of you. But what they will like focus on, it depends on the hiring practices of that company. And 90% of the companies, when hiring freshers for writing Python Django code, is usually going to be around the basics of data structures and algorithms, your understanding of web servers. And if you have done a project on Python Django, then they will look at your code and ask you. Okay, I think one thing I did not mention earlier was one very frequent way of hiring a Python Django developer is to give them a task. One very real use case I can give you is it's if you're interviewing for any company that's using Python Django, even if you're 2 to 3 years of experience, a simple project that they might ask you is to create a URL shortener using Python and Django. And they would get into the depths of it. Now, let's say you have a URL shortener that is addressing 1 million queries a second. Now, you might see, 1 million queries might second seems senseless, but trust me, I have friends working in the AWS teams in Seattle, and they are dealing with requests such as 10 million requests per second. So, code works very differently in those kind of scenarios, right? So, a simple project such as a URL shortener is something that you can judge a programmer from who's at a beginner scale to an expert scale. Everybody is going to be tackling this problem for URL shortener in very different ways. Even if you would see, if you're a fresher, do one thing, create the simplest URL shortener that you know. Do that every 1 year of your engineering, and you will see that the complexity of your own project improves drastically. That is what developers, companies are looking for. Right. Akash asks, is this course helpful for experienced professionals of 1 to 2 years? Definitely, Akash. I think this is very useful for experienced professionals if you do not already know everything that's mentioned in the course. Why am I telling this? Because we are dealing with certain software that is going to be that is used when writing code at scale. Things like Celery, things like deployments is something that we will be covering. So it will help you even if you're an experienced professional and have not worked in these areas. Okay, Rajneesh asks, I know Java and Python both, but confused what to choose next, Spring or Django. Okay, again, I think this is something that we have covered earlier. It depends on your goal. So if you want to, if you're looking for a job that is using Spring, for Spring. If you're looking for a job that's using Django, go for Django. If you're looking for a personal project, I personally like Python. I personally use Python, and I have a lot of Django recipes. Hence, I would go for Django because of the community support and because of my own experience. If you're looking to start out, yeah. So I think.
Yeah, sorry. I just want to add one thing. So, okay, so when I was in Paytm, I was working on Spring Boot, and when I joined Adobe, I was working on mainly Spring and Spring Boot. But for a single project, I had to work on Django and Python, and I learned the basic Python and Django in one week. So I think switching from one framework or from one language to another will not take time more than 1 week or 2 weeks. So I mean, you can go with anyone, and you can learn the another framework very easily if you have the basic knowledge of the, let's say, like the concepts like REST APIs, designing databases are language and framework independent. If you're learning them in any framework, I mean, things will be same. Only the syntax and some things will be different, right? So going with any framework will help you. So we are going out of time, so I'll take 1 or 2 last questions.
Okay. Hi, Vijay. Vijay asks, I have experience of 5 years working in mainframe. Can I make a transition to Python Django development? Yes, Vijay, definitely you can. In fact, I think you would be able to make the transition faster than most since you have 5 years of experience working in. So, see, 5 years of experience working in any domain. I think you have trained your mind in a way to learn faster. Essentially meaning that it's going to be simple for you to get into Python Django dev, look at the documentation, pick a few projects. You will definitely be able to make the transition, provided the why has to be strong enough. See, because I mean, I might get a little general over here, but generally speaking, if you have to learn something, the why behind it needs to be strong enough, or else you tend to get a little bored. Usually there are 2 ways to it, which is the difficulty and your motivation, right? So keep increasing the difficulty. Since you're already experienced for 5 years, do increase the level of your difficulty of your learning. That's going to make it more interesting, and that's going to make it faster for you, and it's going to be better for you to get through that curve. Hi, Yuvraj. Yuvraj says, "Sir, please tell me as a fresher if we can get a job. If we can get a job if I know Django." Okay, right. So if you know Django, and if you will get okay, if you know Django, and if there is an company out there that is looking for a Django dev, if you do manage to clear the interviews, I'm sure you can get through. I think you are looking for a little more of acknowledgement that yes, the industry does have jobs now. I think looking at the coronavirus situation, certain people might be a little concerned if there are jobs in the industry right now related to Django, right? I think, do you want me to address that part of the things, Shashi?
Yeah, you can address that.
Right. Okay. Now let's talk about, let's take a step back and talk only about the coronavirus situation. See, we are in a time where, people are having to walk hundreds of kilometers just to stay alive. There are people who are unemployed in developed nations. Of course, we are going to see an impact of it even in developing nations, even in India. Yes, there will be fewer jobs in every industry, right? That is the hard fact. I do not want to sugarcoat anything. Yes, there will be fewer jobs in the industry. Now, here's the good news. Talking specifically about the tech industry, I think the tech industry is a lot more resilient and it is a lot more adaptable. So what's going to happen is you will see fewer jobs. Hiring has stopped in a lot of companies right now. A lot of companies that were aggressively hiring developers, maybe even just a few months back, have stopped hiring now, right? But what will happen is companies need to survive. They will come up with new products that are servicing the needs of the market. There will definitely be new products that service the market. And if there are new products, you will need people to build new products. So that is where you will see a dip in the jobs right now. But since the industry is going to adapt relatively quicker, I would say maybe once the worst has passed, maybe it's going to take 6 months to a year for the industry to jump back, because the new market will need new product. For new product, you will require new developers. A very small example, I know about this company. I do not want to name it. What happened was, I mean, it's not a controversial case or anything. What happened was, it's in the content space, and ever since the coronavirus shutdown, thing happened, the shutdown started. What happened was the product wasn't relevant anymore because it was a supply chain based thing, right? So if you're selling product that requires supply chain, and if you as a startup have a runway of 2 months, you cannot survive this lockdown. So what happens is, they did have to fire a few people, yes, but the startup did take 2 months to build new product lines that are offering online services. Now, when they started doing that, they started hiring developers again. Right now, this is a very small micro example. Similar thing is going to happen everywhere. Companies like Microsoft are going to double down on their products such as Microsoft Teams, their web conferencing tools. Cisco is going to double down on things like WebEx. Similarly, the sales around these products, the engineering around these products, the infra teams around these products will start increasing in size. Right? For example, a company such as Google might have X number of resources for YouTube and Y number of resources for, let's say, product, if they're into e-commerce. Right now, the e-commerce might die down, and the number of engineers that they will require in video conferencing related products might increase, and hence you will see a trend. First, there will be fewer jobs, but I do predict that the tech industry specifically will recover back. That being said, answering his original question, yes, if you're good enough, if a company has a product, you will get hired. Okay, technology.
Last question for this webinar.
Okay, sure. So somebody asks how to learn Django CMS. Okay, Django CMS is, if I'm not wrong, it's an extension to Django that allows you to have a content management system tool. Now, it depends. If you are a developer looking to build one, there are several packages out there. How I approach this problem is, even let's say when I was a fresher, how I would have approached this. If I know the basics of Django, if I have my website up and running, if I want to integrate a CMS into it, I look at I look towards the community, the most important or the most popular GitHub package. Go to the GitHub. There will be several steps on how to integrate that package. Even Django CMS has a very nice tutorial. Follow those steps. You will be able to integrate it, and you have to mold it according to your needs. Now, I know I cannot be very specific over here, because at the end of the day, it is Django CMS is a technical project. So I would recommend go through its GitHub, follow all the steps. You should be able to do it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Saurabh. I mean, I hope all of our users have gained a lot of knowledge, like how to learn Python and Django, and what is the job options, in this field. So we'll be sharing the link in the comment section of the course that we are talking about. And we have shared the LinkedIn profile of Saurabh. You can connect with him to ask any type of questions. We'll be happy to answer your questions there on the LinkedIn.
Sure.
So you can
Shashi, just one last thing. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think one story that I wanted to mention throughout the webinar, it just did not come up. Okay. So one very interesting thing about the startup that I'm working on. What happened was it's a Django project, and I was looking for developers. So what I did was I just posted on Reddit that, listen, I'm working on this Django project. It has these components, and so it's a startup project. So I was broke essentially. I did not have money to pay anybody. So I just posted on Reddit, and an amazing thing happened. Several people from various parts of the world, people from UK, people from US, from Nigeria, from Europe even, contacted, and they wanted to get into the project. So we quickly created a Slack group where there are people of several parts of the world. All of them, that's how open source development starts. So essentially what I'm saying is, do get into a lot of open source communities, do get into Reddit, be active on Reddit, on Stack Overflow, make friends with developers, on LinkedIn, I don't know, there are several platforms out there. And you'll be surprised how many people are actually looking for a little bit of help. So yeah, that's one way of how you can get into this stuff.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So thank you for your time, and we'll be conducting some more webinars with you on different topics.
Sure.
So thank you. Bye everyone.
Bye everyone.